Welcome back, everyone. Our next speaker is Michel Luczak, co-founder of Nodl, who will tell us about running your own node.
Okay, so my talk will be about running your own Bitcoin node and how it can improve your privacy on the Bitcoin network. Just a brief introduction about who I am. I have 20 plus years experience in electronic software and infrastructure. I'm a security and privacy enthusiast as long as I can remember. Founded the security and hosting company, then the second one. Currently, my main job is an infrastructure architect in a big company. I also own a small consulting shop, and I started my interest in Bitcoin around 2012 as an interesting technical topic I would like to explore, and created the Nodl full node project in 2017. Disclaimer, I'm building full nodes, I'm selling full nodes, and I'm hosting full nodes for money. So my first interest is in having everyone running a full node. And also running a full node can be very addictive. If you think you went too far, please contact your local Bitcoiner support group. Let's talk about the usual Bitcoin tools everybody's using and what you leak about you to them and to surroundings of these tools. Any KYC custodial exchange, the place you are leaking your info is the exchange servers, and what you are leaking is basically everything, which is your KYC, so your real identity, all your transaction IDs which you make with them, the addresses, and many, if not most, exchanges are also practicing address reuse, meaning that any transaction you send to the exchange actually arrives to the same address. So even if you are using separate addresses in your wallet for each transaction, at the end of the day, they arrive to the exchange in one single wallet and they can be tied together. When you're using an online Bitcoin Explorer, the Explorer service servers see your IP address, your transactions, addresses, maybe the block numbers you are looking at, just by, for example, comparing the addresses present in the different blocks you're looking at. They can imagine that these addresses belong to the same person because the same IP address is looking at the blocks. Pretty much the same when you're using a hardware wallet. The hardware wallet backend servers such as Trezor or Ledger are also seeing your public addresses, and even more, for example, they can get your XPub, which is the master address from which they can derive all the past and future addresses of your wallet. And pretty much the same with the software wallets and mobile wallets, for example, Electrum software wallets or mobile wallets such as, let's say, Samurai Wallet, for example. There was a controversy that Samurai backend servers can see your transactions. That's why they open source the server so you can run it on your own node now. And let's not forget all the middlemen, Amazon, Google Cloud, Cloudflare, Akamai, Azure, any services used by the services you are using. For example, I looked at a few, I won't name any, but to prepare this presentation, I looked at a few common services and where they are hosted, and they are most of the time using AWS or Google Cloud load balancers, which are logging all kind of information, including your IP address and the address, the URL you're looking at. And this URL usually contains the address or the blog or the TXID you're looking at. So the services will tell you that they don't keep logs, but well, they're probably lying or they are just not aware of it. For example, in Europe, you have legal obligations like GDPR. Access logs must be kept for 1 to 2 years, depending on the precise country. And usually the full URL is kept in these logs together with your IP address. And as I said before, the full URL contains the TXID or address you're looking at. So if you see your Bitcoin address or TXID in the URL of the Explorer, then you can assume it's logged somewhere. Also, there are easy to overlook places such as load balancers, I already said that, firewalls, or the CDN. For example, services protected by Cloudflare or Akamai. The HTTPS is terminated on the CDN and not on the service itself, so the CDN sees also the full addresses you're looking at. So even if the backend server is not logging, someone might be, and this someone might be in different jurisdictions with different legal obligations. The best advice for going around this problem is using Tor or VPN for accessing these services, which will do that they are not logging your IP together with the addresses you're looking at. But if you don't change your VPN endpoint or Tor circuit between each query you are doing, you will anyway tie them together as a single entity, even if it doesn't have your IP address, it has some IP address which ties them together. And obviously there are different attacks and interception possibilities on the wires, on the fibers, on DNS level, which can allow other third parties to look at what you're doing. So why running your own Bitcoin full node is important? I'm putting full in parentheses because it's not necessary for all users. You can also run what is called a prune node, which only keeps last certain amount of blocks, and which is probably enough if you are a new user or if you don't have a very old wallet with very old transactions. First one is decide what consensus rules you want to run. For example, if you want to run a precise implementation when there is a soft or hard fork, you can do that and you can choose on which chain you will continue running your node. Then the main reason which everybody knows about is you will be able to verify that your unspent outputs are actually what they claim to be. Without trusting a third party. Because you have a local copy of the Bitcoin ledger, you can just check yourself what's inside your addresses. You're participating in decentralizing the network. The more nodes are running, the more the network is decentralized and resilient. You can also, for the same reason, see the other nodes. Like when a new node starts, it has to download all the blocks from different places, and you can be one of these donors. You can run your own payment processor and accept transactions and verify on your local node that the person who is sending you this transaction actually sent you the transaction, and be your own bank is like a nice way to sum that up. It's also actually not just running a full node, because Bitcoin Core or any implementation of Bitcoin is pretty boring. You can't do much with that, but it's a ton of surrounding tools. Our focus for today will be tools that allow you privacy, run locally all the tools you need and never rely on a public service again, and censorship resistance, how to run a full node in a jurisdiction with bad or no internet or where Bitcoin is illegal or blocked. There are also many easy ways to run your own nodes. It can be pretty challenging for cost. Dedicated devices can be pretty expensive. I'm building them and selling them for a significant amount of money. And the requirements grow over time. The disk space grows, the CPU performance and RAM required to run different services such as Explorer and wallet backends grows every day. The bandwidth can be very costly in some places. You can exceed your monthly quota on your internet connection, and this can happen even in places like New York. It can be mitigated with technologies like the Blockstream satellite, which will be downloading the blocks out of your internet connection. The complexity, dedicated devices are nice. If you want to install everything yourself, you can, but it's pretty hard to keep up with the correct versions of every piece of software, and incompatibilities happen often. There's still beta level technology, if not alpha, for some tools, and it's pretty hard to have the correct version of Bitcoin D running with the correct version of LND for the particular wallet you want to use. So yeah, that's what the node vendors are doing for you. And running it on your own computer on an all-purpose cloud provider is probably a bad idea, because there are plenty other things running on these devices, and basically what you would gain in privacy by not using external services can be compromised by other software running on your computer. And there are a lot of easy mistakes to make. For example, even us in the beginning, we named our device Nodl.local, And on the local network, any device could see that there is a full node running on the local network. So now we are using random generated names, and I advise everyone to do that. And even better, if your router allows for it, isolate it on the totally separate network called the DMZ. So running your own full node fixes of these problems and more, not how exactly. All your wallets and your browser will be connecting locally or over a VPN or Tor to your full node. So you will not be using public services anymore. Your Block Explorer also runs on your node. There is no obligation that I know of to keep logs on a device that is not accessible from the internet and used only privately. So you probably don't have to keep the logs on the device. And if there is such an obligation in some jurisdictions, it's pretty hard to prove that you have one in the first place. And it doesn't have to be where you are, because it can be hosted, or it can be in a remote location, a friend's house or third-party house, and can be accessed over VPN or Tor. And it can also work without an internet access at all with limited features. We'll talk about this later. What do we have in a full node? We have, of course, the Bitcoin node itself, usually Bitcoin Core, and we have a Tor or a VPN. Then we have additional features, which can be an Electrum server, a Block Explorer, different wallet backends, a Lightning node, a payment processor, and nice to have, such as a CoinJoin mixer, chat application, Lightning front end, and accounting and reporting. This is how they interact more or less. I didn't draw all the lines because there are too many, but that's the principal ones. The internet access is only ideally done over Tor or VPN, mostly Tor. You as a user will be directly accessing services such as the Block Explorer or the Lightning front end. Then for your hardware wallets, you will be using Electrum, which will be tapping into the Electrum server or different implementations. Then you can have wallet backends such as a Dojo Samurai backend for the Samurai wallet. And you can also connect, for example, decentralized exchange applications such as BISC directly to your Bitcoin full node. These are a few examples of things that can run or connect to a full node with all these things. I will not read all the text because it's pretty long, but important mentions are for payment, you can run BTC Pay server locally, for example, in your shop, and just have your cash register connected to it, and without connecting to any service on the internet except payments from your customers. And you can also use applications such as Sphinx Chat to chat over Lightning, and also payment and subscription-based services and many cool things. This is what I call the next level. It's what you would do if you are in a place you can't rely on the internet to use your Bitcoin full node. And without a full node, you would just be in the dark. You would not be able to transact at all with Bitcoin. These are the features that will still work. So you will have your Bitcoin full node. You will be able to have a payment processor, accounting and reporting, Electrum server, Block Explorer, and wallet backends. To receive the blocks, you will be using a satellite receiver. You will be streaming the blocks from Blockstream satellite service. With the newest version of the receiver, you can download the whole blockchain over a time span of 2 days, I think, from the Blockstream satellite, and then keep up. You will still have the same wallets connected to your Electrum server, still your Block Explorer, still your wallet backends. The main difference is with this setup, you can't send transactions. So what you'll be doing to send transactions is using some usually radio technology. TakeStena is one. It's directly interfacing with Samurai, for example. It can push the transaction to a decentralized peer-to-peer network using the Gotena device. It can also send it by text message to some public phone number that will just relay the transaction to the Bitcoin network. You can also use technologies like LoRaWAN. It's a very nice decentralized semi-open source technology, but that's not all you can do. You can use another type of satellites, which are low orbit telephony satellites, to send small pieces of data. You would not download the full blockchain over the satellite, but you can definitely send transactions. And some people did as early as 2018. That's the earliest I found on Twitter, but I guess there are earlier occurrences of this. Or you can just use long-range traditional low-frequency radio like NVK from Cold Card did on 7 megahertz. I don't remember how far that one was, but basically with good radio setup, you can send a transaction across the globe. Of course, this still requires part of the internet to be up somewhere. It doesn't have to be close to you, but Bitcoin still relies heavily of a working internet network, at least in some part of the world. So in case of a local thermonuclear war, that works. Even in case of a global thermonuclear war, it doesn't. Which are the main providers you could use for a full node? You will find 3 types basically of boxes and or software and or services. So first category is boxes or self-installable kits. It might be only software. You have to buy the hardware, or you can buy a kit and mount it yourself. Hosted solutions and enterprise solutions. The Raspberry Blitz is probably one of the oldest and most well-known kits. You can buy it, I think, semi-assembled or totally assembled now with a nice casing. It's definitely the reference open source implementation for Bitcoin full node. It has a nice screen for status. I think it's lacking a nice web UI, but that's something I think they are working on. Have the Ronin Dojo is a very promising project coming from the Samurai community. It's mostly focused on running the Samurai backend and the Whirlpool mixer. Have MyNode BTC, which is like pretty general. You can buy a pre-assembled device or license, or just use the open source, which is limited in features. Umbrella is a recent project which appears to be a fork of the original Casa node code base. And of course, my product, which is the Nodl. Here there is a high-end device with full encryption, kill switch, and read-only storage. And then you have hosted solutions, the Nodl Cloud that we just launched, which is the same as the box, but hosted by us. And the enterprise solution, which is basically a high-end server that you can use on premises in your company if you are a big store or retailer and you want to process all your Bitcoin transactions in a single device. That's all I have for you. So here's my contact information. If you have any questions or you want to follow up, feel free to mail me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Michel. It's so important for people to understand the significance of running Bitcoin nodes. So thank you for the important work that you've done to educate the community as well as make it easier for people to do.